So good afternoon, everyone. I'm Janice Whitaker, the administrator for the Center of Geriatric Nursing Excellence. It's my pleasure to host the seminar today. And I want to thank Jenny Rank, our CGNE Education Program Specialist, for all the work she does in planning and implementing the seminars, as well as Amy Caputo, our Marketing Communications Specialist, for doing all the advertising for our seminars as well. This program is being provided by the Tressa Neese and Helen Diskovich Center of Geriatric Nursing Excellence at the Penn State Ross and Carol Neese College of Nursing in collaboration with the Office of Outreach and Professional Development, the Center for Nursing Research, and Age Friendly Care Pennsylvania. Today's seminar, Attitudes Towards Aging, exploring how older adults' perceptions and mood impact subjective cognitive decline, will be presented by Dr. Renata Komalasari, CGNE postdoctoral scholar. Before we begin the presentation, we do have some disclosures and announcements. Penn State Ross and Carol Neese College of Nursing is approved with distinction as a provider of nursing continuing professional development by Pennsylvania State Nurses Association, an accredited approver by the American Nurses Credentialing Centers Commission and Accreditation. Participants with a valid RN license who attend the entire Nursing Continuing Professional Development Program can earn 1 contact hour. Partial hours are not awarded. The topic of this education is non-clinical, and therefore we did not identify, mitigate, or disclose relevant financial relationships. So this seminar is being recorded, and if you have any questions or comments for our presenter or for our discussion, you may enter them into the chat, or Jenny will be monitoring the raise hand feature, so you can put your hand up if you're on Zoom, and she will unmute you so you can speak aloud. And of course, those of us that are here in person, can speak a little more freely in that way. We will encourage all participants to do the post-event evaluation, which will pop up in your browser at the end of the session if you're on Zoom. And for those of us that are in attendance in person here, Jenny has a little QR code handy for you to complete it now, or any participant can do it when they receive the email, which you'll get within 24 hours. So to earn contact hours, we do record Zoom in and out times as an attendance piece. We do require that you complete the evaluation tool. And if you meet all of the requirements, you'll receive a certificate within a month of the seminar. If you have any questions, you can always reach out to cgne@psu.edu. So next, I'd like to introduce Ahmed Rifai Yaya, a new graduate student affiliate with our center, who is in his first year of the PhD program here at Penn State. His area of interest involves exploring the experiences and health outcomes of older adults in the healthcare systems, including polypharmacy. So thank you to Ahmed for being here today to introduce our speaker.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's my pleasure to introduce our speaker for today's seminar. She is the Teresa Neese and Helen Diskovich Center for Geriatric Nursing Excellence postdoctoral scholar at the Penn State Neese College of Nursing. She earned her doctoral degree in applied aging and rehabilitation science from the College of Rehabilitation and Health Services, University of North Texas. Her research area focused on assessing cognitive decline, examining predictors of subjective cognitive decline among older adults to optimize their inclusion in society. Today's topic is attitude towards aging, exploring how older adult perception and mood impact subjective cognitive. Please join me welcome Renata Komalasari, PhD.
Thank you, Ahmad, for the kind introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to attend this presentation. The title of my presentation is Attitudes to Aging, exploring how older adult perception and mood impact subjective cognitive decline. So, first of all, I'd like to thank Dr. Nikki Hill for her supervision and guidance on helping throughout the preparation of this talk. Also to Dr. Diane Veris for advice on statistical analysis for this study. This study received funding support from the Tresanis and Helen Discovich Center of Geriatric Nursing Excellence at the Penn State NIS and College of Nursing. So thank you, CGNE, for the funding. So after participating in this session, attendees should be able to describe subjective cognitive decline in older age, differentiate subjective well-being concept in older age, including attitudes to aging, positive affect, and current depressive symptom, differentiate, recognize the association between attitudes to aging and subjective cognitive decline, and whether current positive affect and current depressive symptom influence the association. Last but not least, to raise our awareness of the influence of older adults' attitude and mood on SCD reporting in the aging population. So before I share my research, I'd like us to think about these questions. Do you think how we perceive aging and moods can influence our memory and thinking? And I will get back to this question later on in my presentation. But let me start with definition of subjective cognitive decline. So subjective cognitive decline is individual perceived decline in cognitive performance over time, which may or may not be confirmed by cognitive testing. So we can see from this diagram that show cognitive decline trajectory that SCD is an early stage in the neurodegenerative process, typically falls between healthy aging and mild cognitive impairment. Although SCD may not necessarily progress to mild cognitive impairment, it is still a potentially important clinical indicator worthy of consideration by patient and healthcare provider, because there's a strong evidence that SCD may indicate a very early symptom of progressive cognitive decline. So moving on, older adult perception of aging may contribute to future risk of cognitive impairment. One of the concepts or domains of perception of aging is attitudes to aging, referring to positive or negative perception of aging. It consists of two standpoints, general and personal views of aging. Personal views of aging are our own perception of our aging with our experience with aging, and general views of aging refer to how the society perceive becoming older or older age. There is a consistent evidence supporting the association between attitudes to aging and a wide range of health-related outcomes and well-being in later life, including cognitive outcomes, specifically subjective cognition. Now, although both personal and general views of aging may impact older adult psychosocial health, previous evidence show that personal rather than general attitudes to aging are more strongly associated with health outcomes and well-being, specifically with subjective cognition. A little bit about attitudes to aging. Attitudes to aging is a multi-dimensional concept. It captures both our loss and growth in the experience of aging. It consists of three domains: physical change, psychological growth, and psychosocial loss. As we can see, physical change are our attitudes towards health and exercise within the context of aging. Psychological growth refer to the gains associated with older age, and psychosocial loss are views on the negative views on old age as a negative experience. So specific domains of aging, of attitudes to aging, may differentially associated with different health outcomes and well-being. So therefore, they are very important to consider for us to get a better or comprehensive understanding of different health outcomes and well-being, specifically on subjective cognition. So what subjective cognition is our perception of cognitive functioning, and there is a consistent current evidence largely support the association between personal attitudes to aging and subjective cognition. For example, previous studies show that older adults with more negative attitudes to aging were associated or tend to report poorer subjective cognition and more cognitive complaints. Similarly, other studies have also shown that people who report fewer cognitive complaints tend to experience less decline in personal attitude over the years, specifically to 20 years. However, other studies found that no association between personal attitude to aging and changes in cognitive memory, at least from one cross-sectional study and one longitudinal study. So moving on, older adult affective well-being or psychosocial health may also be associated or linked with subjective cognition in older age. Both positive and negative affect may influence how older adults perceive their aging. A little bit about positive affect. Positive affect refers to emotions or feelings that reflect a pleasurable engagement with the environment. People with higher positive affect tend to be more energetic, alert, and more joyful, like me, maybe. Just kidding. And previous evidence show that older adults with higher positive affect tend to report better overall health, including better cognitive abilities, particularly executive functioning, such as reasoning, problem solving, and decision making. And they also tend to report fewer cognitive complaints. On the other hand, people with depressive symptoms, which is characterized by having more or higher negative and lower positive affect or mood, tend to be more easily tired and, vulnerable to fatigue. And previous studies have also shown that having more depressive symptoms tend to make people view their aging experience more negatively, and they more likely to experience subjective cognitive impairment. And so that's why they have lower quality of life. So our study was informed by this theory. Maybe some of you are familiar with this theory, the stereotype embodiment theory. This theory suggests that the extent to which an individual internalized age stereotype determine our health outcomes and well-being within the social and cultural context. And in this study, we're particularly interested on current positive affect and current depressive symptoms and their role in relation to health outcomes and well-being, specifically subjective cognitive decline. So based on this theory, we built this conceptual framework to guide our study. We investigated the association between attitudes to aging and subjective cognitive decline, and whether current positive affect and current depressive symptoms moderate the association, accounting for social demographic of the participants and dementia exposure. Dementia exposure refers to a report whether the participants have a family or close friend with dementia experience. Although there is a growing body of literature showing the association between attitudes to aging and subjective cognition, few have looked at the association or focus on subjective cognitive decline. And knowledge on the impact of both positive and negative affect or emotion is limited in relation to SCD. Therefore, the purpose of our study is to better understand the association between attitudes to aging and SCD, and whether both affect, positive and negative, in this study, current positive affect and current depressive symptom influence the association. We used two study aims to examine the purpose of this study. In the first study aim, we focus on the overall attitudes to aging in relation to SCD. And the second study aim, we focus on the three domains of attitude to aging, physical change, psychological growth, and psychosocial loss in relation to SCD. Our study was part of a larger cross-sectional study investigating older adult perception of aging and cognition, conducted as an online survey in 2021 through Qualtrics among US adults 65 years old and over. In our sampling strategy, we prioritize diversity of the participant socio-demographic. This full survey took about 30 minutes to complete, and this study used a portion of the data collected. Our study sample or participants were all English speaking with and live independently, and they have no report of dementia diagnosis or cognitive impairment. So these are the observed variable and the measurements. So I will go through one by one, a bit slowly. So subjective cognitive decline was assessed by the 12 items of everyday cognition scale covering 6 domains on subjective cognition. Higher scores indicate higher SCD or worse, higher decline or worse SCD. Participants rated their abilities to perform daily activities or tasks compared to 10 years ago. Attitude to aging was assessed by 24 items of attitudes to aging questionnaire or the AAQ-24 or on perception or views of old age. Higher scores indicate more positive attitudes to aging. For each of the 3 domains of attitude to aging was assessed by 8 items of the AAQ-24. So for the first 2 domains, physical change and psychological growth, higher scores indicate more positive attitude, but higher scores on psychosocial loss indicate more negative attitude. For current positive affect, we assess it by the promise, the current promise positive affect short form transformed into T-scores, where higher scores indicate more positive mood or emotion. Participants rated how often they experience feeling or positive feeling for the past 7 days to reflect current experience. And for current depressive symptom, we assess it by the promise depression short form transformed into T-scores, where higher scores indicate more depressive symptoms. Participants rated how often they experience symptoms of depression for the past 7 days, again to reflect the current experience with depressive symptoms. So due to positively skewed distribution of our outcome variable, which is subjective cognitive decline, we use Poisson regression accounting for all covariates. Again, in the first study aim, we focus on the overall attitudes to aging. So we examine the association between these overall attitudes to aging and SCD, as well as the interaction between overall attitude to aging and each of the moderator that we tested, current positive affect and current depressive symptom. For the second study aim, we focus on the 3 domains. So we examine the association between each of the domains and SCD and the interaction between each of the domain with current depressive symptom and each of the domain and current depressive symptom, the interaction. Moving on, so our study was drawn from 339 cases with age ranging from 65 years old to 86 years old. Most of our study participants were female. A quarter of them are African American and other race or ethnicity background, and more than half were married or live with a domestic partner. In terms of education, we can see that our participants came from different level of education background. For example, about 1/3 have completed vocational or technical school, and another 1/3 have associate or bachelor degree. But we also have participants who only complete high school or less than high school degree. Based on the annual family income, we can see that our participants came from low, middle, and high socioeconomic level. And regarding dementia exposure, less than half of them say that they have relatives or close friends with dementia experience. So moving on to result. Remember, just a reminder that the first aim focused on the overall attitudes to aging. So we found the overall attitudes to aging and both moderator that we tested, current positive affect and current depressive symptom, were each significantly associated with SCD, accounting for all covariates. However, in terms of the interaction, none of the interaction were significant. So the interaction between overall attitudes to aging and current affect was not significantly associated with STD, and also the interaction between attitude to physical change, to attitudes to aging and current depressive symptom also was not significantly associated with STD. So what it means is that there is no moderation effect in the first model that focused on overall attitudes to aging. On the second study aim, we used two models. In the first model, where we tested current positive affect moderation, we found that each domain was significantly associated with STD. So attitude to physical change in aging, attitude to psychological growth in aging, and attitude to psychosocial loss were each significantly associated with STD. However, only the interaction between attitude to physical change and current positive affect was significantly associated with STD. So what it means is that the association between attitude to physical change and SCD was moderated by current positive affect. And the moderation was significant at low and medium level of current positive affect. So if we take a look this simple slope analysis, we can see that more positive attitude to physical change are associated with lower subjective cognitive decline. I just need to explain that the black slope indicate high current positive affect. So higher, although the arrow pointing down, but it's higher current positive affect is associated with lower subjective cognitive decline. And we can see that the green slope is steeper than the red slope. So green slope indicate low current positive affect, and red slope indicate a medium current positive affect. So what it tells us is that the association between more positive physical change in aging and lower current and lower subjective cognitive decline gets stronger or was accentuated by a lower current positive affect. So what it means is that older people with more positive attitude to physical change in aging, although they have a little bit of current positive emotion, their chance of getting subjective cognitive decline is lower. Moving on to the next model, where we tested current depressive symptom moderation, we found that attitude to physical change in aging and attitude to psychosocial loss were both or each was significantly associated with SCD, accounting for all covariates. However, attitude to psychological growth were not significantly associated with SCD. And in terms of the interaction, we found that both the interaction between attitude to physical change in aging and current depressive symptom was significantly associated with SCD. And so what it means is that the moderation effect of current depressive symptom was also significant in the association between attitude to physical change in aging and current depressive symptom. And the moderation effect was significant this time at medium and at high and medium, but not at local current depressive symptom. And we can see from the simple slope analysis that similar with the previous model, higher attitude to physical change in aging was associated with lower subjective cognitive decline, but higher current depressive symptom was associated with also higher subjective cognitive decline or worse subjective cognitive decline. So what it tells us is that the association between more positive attitude to physical change in aging and lower subjective cognitive decline get stronger with higher current depressive symptoms. As we can see that the black slope is steeper than the red slope. So it indicates that with higher current depressive symptom, higher current depressive symptom moderate the association of both variables. The last model, which is the interaction between attitude to psychosocial loss and current depressive symptoms was significantly associated with SCD. So what it tells us is that the association with between attitude to psychosocial loss and SCD was also moderated by current depressive symptoms. And the moderation effect was significant at low and medium level of current depressive symptoms, but not at high level of current depressive symptoms. Again, just as a reminder, so with attitude to physical change in aging, higher scores indicate more positive attitude, but with attitude to psychosocial loss, higher scores indicate more negative attitude. So the association, more negative attitude to psychosocial loss in aging were associated with higher subjective cognitive decline. Similarly, more current depressive symptoms were associated with higher subjective cognitive decline. And we can see that the green slope indicating low current depressive symptom is steeper than the red slope. The red slope. So what it tells us is that more negative attitude to psychosocial loss were associated with higher subjective cognitive decline, and it gets stronger or was accentuated by lower current depressive symptoms. That's a lot to take, but later on I will give the summary. Don't worry. So again, just to recap, our study investigated the association between attitudes to physical change to aging as an overall and the three domain in relation to SCD, and whether current positive affect and current depressive symptom moderate the association. Our findings show that the overall attitudes to aging was associated with SCD, specifically more positive attitude to overall attitude to aging are associated with lower subjective cognitive decline. So what it tells us is that if we have an overall positive attitude to aging, our chance of getting SCD gets lower or reduced. Our findings also show a consistent association between attitude to physical change in aging and psychosocial loss, specifically with SCD. However, we don't find significant association between attitude to psychological growth and SCD, especially in the model where we tested current depressive symptom moderation. Regarding current affect or emotion in older adult, we found that older adult with more positive. So this is the interpretation from the three models moderation graph. Older adults with more positive attitude to physical change in aging, even if they have a little bit of positive emotion, they tend to report lower SCD. So this is what we want. And the next one, older adults who perceive their physical change in aging more positively, but they have also a large amount or more current depressive symptoms, they tend to report lower SCD. Older adults who have more negative attitude to aging, to psychosocial loss, even at lower current depressive symptoms, tend to report higher SCD. So we can see that it takes a lot for the second one. It takes a lot of more current depressive symptoms for people to have a lower SCD. So this is the theory that we use to frame our study. And our findings align with the stereotype embodiment theory and the possible underlying self-efficacy mechanism that might explain the association between attitude to aging and subjective cognitive decline. Self-efficacy is an individual confidence in their ability to achieve their desired goal. There is a strong evidence that show a longitudinal effect of older adult perception of aging on self-efficacy, specifically those or older adults who view aging more favorably or more positively tend to have higher expectation of their health behavior goal, and they're more likely to engage in health promoting behavior such as healthy eating, exercising, or having daily lower negative affect. Our study findings were also aligned with previous cross-sectional study among adults 50 years old and over in Israel. This study showed that a more positive attitude to physical change and psychological growth were associated with fewer cognitive complaints. That study in Israel also have a focus on subjective cognition. They also use AAQ-24 to assess attitudes to aging. However, they use rating of current cognition, and there is no specific time in the measurement. Compared to our investigation of SCD, which is perceived decline in cognitive function over time. We use the everyday cognition scale to assess a decline in cognitive function over 10 years prior, which is a specific type of subjective cognition that is more associated with future risk of cognitive impairment. Talking about the strength and limitation of the study, one of the strengths is that we use more than adequate sample size to detect an effect of the observed variables on SCD. In addition to socio-demographic of the participants, we also accounted for dementia exposure, as there's a strong evidence in the literature that older adults with first-degree relatives or family or spouses with dementia experience may be more likely to report SCD. And our participants are more diverse than previous attitude to aging study. Previous attitude to aging study are typically conducted among older adults, white older adults with longer years of education. But as we mentioned, in our study, at least a quarter of our participants came from African American background and other race and ethnicity. In addition to the 76% of white older adults. So our study used cross-sectional design. That's why we cannot determine causality from the study. And since it is an online survey, it is limited to English-speaking older adults with access to the internet, which means that the findings of this study might not be generalized into a wider aging population. So what are the implications of this study? Our study found that older adults' attitude regarding aging as an overall and also physical change and attitude to physical change and attitude to psychosocial loss are associated with SCD reporting, but attitude to psychological growth are not. Current mood moderate the association between attitudes to aging and subjective cognitive and attitude to physical change and psychosocial loss in aging and SCD. Due to limitation of our study, we would recommend that for future study to consider using other study design, for example, mixed method, as it may provide a more in-depth understanding of older adults' perception of their aging and mood and their impact on subjective cognitive decline. Given previous evidence that personal rather than general attitudes to aging may be more associated with health outcomes and well-being, particularly subjective cognition, future research may investigate these two standpoints of attitude to aging separately in relation to SCD. So back to our questions, whether how we perceive aging and our mood may influence our memory or thinking. We found, or our study found, that older adult attitude to physical change and psychosocial loss may influence SCD reporting, which is an early indicator of cognitive decline risk in aging. How current mood impacts older adult perception of aging depends on specific domains of the aging attitude. So with that, I will end my presentation, and these are the selected references that we use in our study. Thank you for your attention, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Well, thank you so much, Renata, for that amazing presentation and so much to absorb there in all of that. I know Jenny will be monitoring the chat feature via Zoom for our Zoom participants, as well as any Zoom participants that want to raise their hand to unmute and speak aloud. But does anyone in the room have a question or comment for Renata?
I do, I was just waiting to make sure anyone else. I have a lot. First of all, it was excellent, great job, and you really know this, which was very nice, just very nice presentation style, so thank you. Your sample seemed young to me. And what fascinates me about this work is this, I just attended a conference on resilience. And so I'm thinking that some of these are like features of, really sort of resilience. So I wondered if, and maybe that's database has it. So two things. One is I wondered if you excluded people with depression. I remembered you exclude people with dementia, but I wondered if you excluded people with depression because we know that that's associated with cognitive impairment. And then the second was, do you think you would have gotten the same or different results if you had had it an older age group, like 85? And I don't know the answer to that. It just struck me that that's sort of like a young, I consider 71 to be very young in some ways. But I think when you think about geriatrics, it's sort of like the young old, versus old. So I just wondered if you thought about that at all and how you see this in the whole picture of resilience, of how we measure resilience. Not an easy question, sorry.
So thank you for the question, Dr. Fick. No, I don't think we exclude depressive symptom in this study. Yes, we did exclude dementia exposure, but not depressive symptom. So that's what we highlight in the beginning, that there's a growing body of literature already on the association between depressive symptom in SCD. So therefore, although we focus on examining both moderators, but actually the research gap here actually on the role of positive affect in relation to SCD. But that is actually came up to mind when I ran the analysis, because with the psychosocial aspect, which where higher scores indicate more negative attitude, that actually kind of give a hint about possibility of multicoloniality in the variable, but we did account for that in consulting with the statistical analyst, statistical analysis expert here. So yeah, that's what we understood so far about that particular variable. Regarding your second question, I remember did a research when I with subjective cognitive decline as well as an outcome when I did my dissertation. I did found a weird kind of findings, because that time I assessed not attitude to aging specifically, but there is a trend where the middle old, so I look at daily functionality in relation to SCD, and there is a trend where the middle old, which is 74 to 79, tend to show more significant association between daily functionality and SCD. So with that, I need to take a look at the literature, what it says about the different variation across the age cohort in relation to STD. But thank you for giving an insight that so we can, do more study whether it's different or getting worse or, getting better as at age advancing. Yeah.
Thank you. Great answer. And there's There's no right answer. It just made me thinking about over time and as people have more chronic disease and thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the question.
We have a question in the chat from Dr. Chris England. He asked, was negative affect examined? And if it was, were there any associations with that?
Whether negative affect examine?
Negative affect,
What about it? Sorry.
whether you examined that in the study specifically.
Oh, yeah. So yeah, so on this study for negative affect, we focus on depressive symptom because as I mentioned that one of the characteristics of a depressive symptom is higher negative affect and lower positive mood. So we did focus on that as a moderator and also exploring the role of negative affect, but particularly with a particularly focus on depressive symptom.
Thank you.
So Renata, I
Yeah.
loved the format of your presentation. I was made the research, even though it's very comprehensive, very clear and understandable. And I especially appreciated when you were talking about the research implications. I'm wondering, as an educator and as a nurse clinician, if you thought a little bit about the implications for those areas of work, like how could an educator or a nurse use some of this information in their practice? Because for me, I'm thinking about, you were talking about the negative attitudes and how they influence, psychosocial, how they relate to psychosocial loss and aging. And, could we be doing a better job with problems like social isolation and, bereavement and improving social connectedness for older adults? Do you see any relationship between those kinds of things in the work you did?
I think it's a very good question because throughout this study, I've been thinking, what's the significance of my study? So I guess particularly the findings from those models, what strike me is that if we probably both as patient or healthcare provider, if you happen to have positive attitudes to aging, even if you have a high level of current depressive symptoms, your positive attitude can overcome your negative feeling. That's what I found from the moderation effect, although not at every level. So I guess as a healthcare provider, it's very important for us to educate or even educate ourselves to have to view our aging, especially our personal aging, because previous evidence show that personal rather than general attitude to aging is more strongly associated with health outcomes and well-being. And also what I highlight in the first slide is that you see STD is a very early indicator of future risk of cognitive decline, future cognitive decline. So I guess findings of this study that show the significant association between our attitude to aging, particularly our personal attitude to aging, our personal attitude to aging, and all these health outcomes, particularly subjective cognition, it really helped myself to raise or have a positive attitude towards my own aging. As reading all this literature really tell me what I have to do, in my future aging process. And if we have that, I think if we have that attitude, it will be like, if you have the confidence or you are convicted of your own aging process, that your attitude might speak louder to the outcomes, then I'm pretty sure what you believe, then it will be automatically delivered in what you say to your staff or your patient or your daily life. And so people would have more positive attitude, and it will, kind of impact what you did with your patient in daily basis. But that's just an idea in mind, yeah.
Yeah.
Do I
Thank
answer
you.
your
Thank you
question?
for thinking about that and sharing
Yeah.
your ideas. Any other questions or, oh, Jenny?
We do have another question from Dr. Erica Hesser. She was asking if she said, great presentation and thank you. She said, I'm curious about why the sample selected only included those living alone or independently. So excluding the skilled nursing facility and assisted living, if you could elaborate on that.
So they live independently, which means they're not living in a senior living facility, things like that. And is it why?
Yeah, I guess what was the decision on excluding those living in assisted living or skilled nursing?
So this Qualtrics platform, they maintain a database for people who are eligible to complete the online survey. I'm not sure about that. That's a good question. Well, I guess I might need to ask to take a look the data collection further. But what I can say is that because this is an online survey, we use that database that Qualtrics have that they maintain for people who are eligible to participate. But yeah, I will need to do more further investigation on that. Thank you for the questions. Yeah.
I have a follow-up, made me think of that.
Yeah.
Did you have to pay for that? I'm thinking like for students that might want to access these kind of databases, like how did you get access to it? And because you did some fun things with it.
Yeah, so my understanding is when you complete the online survey, you get some compensation.
Oh,
So
no, I'm sorry.
You get money.
As a researcher, how did you access this? Did you have to pay to use these data? Like a lot of the larger databases you have to pay for? Like, how did you get access to it? Maybe, I don't know, Dr. Hill.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can
Maybe
speak to that if that's okay,
Sorry,
Renata.
just-
Yeah, so so yes, there is a cost involved. And so essentially Qualtrics maintains a large database of individuals who opt in to participate. And then you can work with them. There is a cost where they recruit individuals based on your specific criteria. Right, so they send out invitations to people who may meet your basic criteria, and you essentially pay per participant, at the outset. So if anyone wants to learn more about Qualtrics, there is a designated Qualtrics person for Penn State for their research services. So I'd be happy to speak with anybody more about that as far as our experience.
Super, thanks. Just thinking like students and
Yep.
others.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments for Renata?
Can I be honest with you?
One thing I was wondering about is some of the questions that they actually asked in the survey. Could you give us a couple of examples? Like, how did you get at some of this information?
Do you want
they have-
to specify on certain variable, the STD or?
Yeah,
attitude
just
to
a couple
aging?
examples. How did they assess, for people's psychosocial loss, for example, or, you mentioned some of the scales that were used, but do you have any examples of
Yeah,
questions?
so
that-
like the attitude to psychosocial loss, whether, because it's focused on current experience with negative emotion. So one of the question is that whether you feel depressed or sad in the past 7 days.
Okay,
Yeah, but with the STD, they focus on more, everyday tasks, their ability.
okay, so everyday tasks and things like
Yeah,
that.
for the mood variable, the affect variable, you focus on the recent experience in the past 7 days, but for STD, you compare your ability to perform daily tasks compared to 10 years ago. to show decline in cognitive performance. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
We do have another question in the chat from Light. He actually has two questions, so I'll start with the first one. He said, wonderful presentation. With these surveys, did you were you able to explore how cultural, societal, or environmental factors were influencing attitude towards aging and subjective cognitive decline?
No, I don't think we focus on that because the focus of this project is, perception of aging and cognition, but those variable may be, related or influence STD, and maybe in future study, we can take a look at those variable. Yeah, because there's a lot of variable that might influence STD, and there's a chance for future research to examine what really influence STD to to inform how we can intervene to reduce risk of cognitive impairment in the future. Yeah.
And that kind of goes to his second question. He asked, are there specific interventions or support systems that can positively impact older adults' attitudes towards aging and subjective cognitive decline?
One that I can think of is, what do you call it again? Something related to meditation, because what do you call it again? Mindfulness approach. Yeah, I've read a lot of literature supporting the positive effect of mindfulness-based intervention on reducing or associated with lower subjective cognitive decline. So yeah, other intervention I need to read the literature, but that's one thing that, and of course physical activity, as there's a lot of evidence showing support to how higher engagement in physical activity may lower subjective cognitive decline. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I see a lot of connections with this work
Yeah.
and so many other really important things. Donna mentioned resiliency. I'm thinking even the Mind Body Strong program we have here at the College of Nursing, the importance of, developing positive attitudes and how that helps to promote strength and resiliency. I'm also thinking about ageism, that if we work to improve attitudes about aging in our culture, maybe more people as they age will have more positive views of their aging process and therefore reduce their risk of subjective cognitive decline. Is that a stretch? What do you think? I don't know.
If we become an age-friendly university.
There we go. We're working on that. Yeah. Well, we are at the end of our session, so thank Donna again. And just as a reminder, as Donna's moving up to the front, if people can complete the evaluation, for those of you that are on Zoom, it'll pop up in your browser. And for those of us that are here in person, Jenny is sharing a QR code. So, no, one more thing.
This is a gift, and I want to say again, amazing presentation, and also you're such a champion and engager with our center, and we're really grateful to you for that, and we look forward to seeing wonderful things from you.